rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick, Well, I'm going to start the show with a sad and somber note. We definitely need to honor these service members. 4 out of the 6 American troops killed in Operation Epic Fury have been identified. And we, obviously on this show, we tend to honor our nation's veterans and our fallen. And so tonight we're going to start off with that. And then, of course, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance and the normal business. But for the 4 that have passed, the first name is Captain Cody Cork, Khork. Sergeant First Class Nicole Armour, Amor. Sergeant First Class Noah Tietjens, Tietjens. And Sergeant Declan Cody, or I think it's Cady, Coady. They were all assigned, they're U.S. Army Reserve soldiers assigned to the 103rd Sustainment Command based out of Des Moines, Iowa. These were 4 of the 6 that were killed in an Iranian drone strike at the port of Shubuia, or Shabwa, however it's pronounced, Shuaiba, in Kuwait on March 1st. 3 were announced March 1st. The 4th was announced on March 2nd after the soldier succumbed to their injuries. So, here is their images. And, if you don't mind, I would like to play taps for them. So please stand or remove your hat if you would, and honor these 4 soldiers in their passing. As always, whenever in war, casualties are going to happen. Our prayers are with the family members of these wonderful soldiers and individuals, and may God have mercy on their souls. Prayers to the friends and families that are all with them. All right, folks. Well, tonight, of course, is
down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right, it's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And I have drained. No more. The Four Roses single barrel bottle that I have, so that means I need to go and purchase another one here pretty soon. But of course, it is in the True Grit Roots Network in the good old red, white, and blue glass right here. With the stones, because it takes stones to drink with whiskey, and the stones are right there. There's 3 of them in the bottom of the glass. All right, we'll take our first sip. Smooth. All righty, folks. Let's go ahead and get the Pledge of Allegiance done up. Definitely Not Karen is here in the green room right over there. Right over there. I see him. He is getting ready. Yes, that is a he. He is getting ready. He's getting his pipes up and ready to go. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Definitely Not Karen as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and I thank you, Definitely Not Karen, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file gets created, attach it to an email, and then address that email to me. Send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation. I have 21 of these items. I'd like to get 26 by the end of 2026, so you would greatly help me out, any 5 of you. It would greatly help me out by sending them in. And if you can't send it in, if the file ends up being too big, try uploading it to one of those free sites, whether it's Google Drive, Dropbox, or Box. You can create a link and then email that link to me, and then I'll be able to download it from there. If you use your phone, I understand there is an option called the share, S-H-A-R-E, share option, and you'll be able to send it to fans at AmericanPerspective.online as well. And you can get it over to me, and I will get you into the rotation. All right. You know, I'm kind of surprised nobody has said anything about my background. By the way, that is an actual flag. I mean, not like that is not an actual flag. However, I do have that flag right now, and it will be going up on my flagpole underneath my larger flag for it. And so, yeah. I saw it and I went, hey, I got to grab that. Now, I know a lot of people don't do, Amazon and stuff like that, but this is a beautiful flag, and I had to get one to commemorate the 250th anniversary of our founding. And there it is. And it is an actual flag. It is in real life. It is an IRL, let me tell you. So yes, it's kind of, I mean, the Bennington is actually, the 76 flag with the stars around it or whatever. That one, I have a copy of that one too, but this one actually commemorates the 250th, the best way that I know how. So I stole the image that was on the ad for the flag, and I'm using it for my background now. So this is fantastic. I love it. I love it. It's great. All right. Tonight's headline sponsor is none other than True Grit Roots Network. That's right. TGRN stands for True Grit Roots Network. Got to get right. And TGRN.net is our home on the web, and you can go and listen to both of our signature channels, whether it's Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio or Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. And you can grab that. You can listen If you go over to tgrn.net, you can listen to either one of them right now. All you have to do is listen through your browser. There's the 2 play buttons on the widgets. You can click play, and you'll be able to listen to either one of them. There you go. Or, and this is even better yet. You should download our app from either the Google Play or the App Store locations. You can search for both of them, or if you go to tgrn.net on your mobile device and click on one of these wonderful little logos underneath whichever one it is, whether it's the App Store or Google Play, whichever one that you use, and download our apps. Why not download both of them? Because you never know. Some days you might want to listen to Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, and then maybe you'll get a hankering for some Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. It's always good to have options and put both of them in your phone. So go and do that today. Download both of them. And then, of course, in order to express your wonderful support and the fact that you love Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio or Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio or both, or you just love TGRN, well, all you got to do is go up to the top and hit shop. Right there, I'm flashing it in red. Go up to the top, click shop, and you'll be taken right to the shop.tgrn.net website for our wonderful store, swag store. And there they are. You got t-shirts, hoodies, and caps. You can get any or all combinations. There's like a bunch of different styles, colors, well, colors mostly. But don't forget, pick whichever one you want. Pick 2, pick 3, pick 4, pick all of them. I don't care. Actually, I would love it if you picked everything. But so would my partner. But anyway, just grab whatever you want. I personally am kind of smitten with the TGRN, that's the True Grit Roots Network logo right here. You can see it on the upper, well, it would be your upper left. You can go and grab that. It's on just a fantastic black tee, or you can do it on a black sweatshirt right underneath it. There you go. Go and grab your swag today, whether it's the TGRN logo, the Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio logo, or the Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio logo. And show your support for your favorite digital radio station, digital internet radio station. TGRN stands for True Grit Roots Network, and they are based out of Austin, Texas. All right. Well, I guess the son of Ayatollah Khomeini has now been named as Iran's next supreme leader, at least according to Breitbart. I wonder if they have bets as to how long he's going to live. Anyway, he's apparently the son. He's being tipped up to rise and assume the leadership of the country, despite the fact that he's never been elected or appointed to any kind of a government role. He's actually a mid-level Shiite cleric, and he's going to inherit the position purely through an accident of birth as his daddy's good boy, according to multiple outlets. AP reports the younger Khomeini has not been seen publicly since Saturday, when the Israeli airstrike targeting the supreme leader's offices killed his 86-year-old father as part of Operation Epic Fury. He's alleged, he has alleged past links to the UK, as noted on social media. So, apparently, according to Neil Stone on X, he says the new supreme leader is deeply entrenched in the UK, owning luxury properties in the most expensive parts of London and regularly coming to London for private health care. And, of course, the UK allowed it for years. So, yeah. We'll see what happens here. We'll see what happens here with this. Now, he reportedly survived the airstrikes, and his seen by the establishment as firming to assume the role of the next supreme leader, two Iranian sources told Reuters on Wednesday, that's today. The 56-year-old is reported to have been selected as the primary candidate after two meetings of Iran's Assembly of Experts, Iranian officials told the New York Times. So, yeah. We'll just sort of have to see what's going to happen here. And if this guy makes a change or does something different, well, or if he even survives. Well, speaking about Iraq and how, oh, Nana, really? Anyway, speaking of Iraq and how things are going, or sorry, Iran and how things are going over there, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, says that America is winning the war against Iran. They are winning decisively, he says. And the reason being is because they will have complete control of the airspace within days. Now, I don't know if anybody's seen any of the videos. I've seen a few of the videos where they have those mobile launchers. Now, keep in mind, Iran's been armed by the Soviets and the Chinese. And they have mobile rocket launchers. They've got these big, I don't know what you call them, but they got these big trucks, let's say, kind of like a semi. And it goes around, and they have these mobile rocket launchers on them, ballistic missile launchers, let's call them. And they go around, they hide, and then they pop up out of nowhere. They fire off their stuff. Well, apparently, the minute that they fire off their stuff, we have so many planes and so much coverage in the air that the minute one of these things fires off their missile, yeah, it immediately gets hit. And I mean, we're talking like, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds before the thing even is obliterated. We've got such great coverage over there. And you know what's kind of interesting is the fact that Iran had a lot of like Chinese-made anti-aircraft, not weaponry, but defenses. They've had all of this stuff that the Chinese made, and, well, that worked really well for Venezuela, and it seems to be working just as good in Iran, meaning that it's not working at all. So for any of these folks that are sitting there thinking that, oh, yeah, Iran's going to be hard to take out or whatever, look, I'm not saying that it's going to be over in a day or two. I'm not saying that there won't come a time where our progress has been stalled. However, the fact that Iran is up against not only its neighbors, but the two most sophisticated, most skilled, and largest air superiority forces, meaning the United States and the Israelis, yeah, they really don't have much of a chance when it comes to the air power. Navy, too, because we've been taking the Navy out quite often and quite a bit. Even so, though, Iran has closed the shipping lane in the Strait of Hormuz, or Hormuz, however it's pronounced. Well, here's the thing. You know, the Americans have been very effective with this. Now, let's think about this for a second. There is this, quote, axis of evil. Okay? The axis of evil includes China, Russia, and Iran, along with other countries like Venezuela. Now, let's take a look at this for a second. Venezuela has lost Maduro. Venezuela has a temporary government at this point and is working with the Americans, kind of because they have to. And then within a few short weeks of Maduro getting taken out, Iran is hit. And 49 of its leaders are obliterated off the planet. And I'm just going to point this out, that in terms of the oil, the Chinese have been buying oil from Venezuela and Iran against sanctions of the United States. You think that maybe this is a backhanded way to prevent China from taking Taiwan? Because here's the thing, folks. In order to wage war, you kind of need a few things. One of them is money. The second thing you need is something to power your fleet. In this case, it's oil and petroleum products. And the other thing that you need in order to wage war is superiority in some fashion. Now, the most common superiority that starts is the air, because in order to have the high ground, and to have air superiority, I mean, you can be on land, you can go running across the land, you can be on sea, you can run across the sea. But if you don't have the air, if you don't have above you, the chances of you actually making it across that land or across that sea is going to be kind of tough. It's going to be kind of tough. Not to mention the fact that if you add into this, as my smart, intelligent whiskey warrior P1s have pointed out, we also kicked China out of Panama within the last year. Now, if you don't think that all of this stuff is like tied together, or if you think that it's not tied together, I promise you it is. Every single thing that has happened right now, when you take all of the pieces and you look at the puzzle and you put these pieces out on the board, it is a much bigger puzzle that is being set up. And if you don't think that China is looking at this, and Russia too, they're looking at this and going, oh, crap. Especially China. Trump is essentially reasserting American dominance after it's been taken over by, or I should say, dropped off the cliff by Obama and Biden. So what we are doing, what America is doing when you look at this, in the grand scheme of things, we're taking out China's dependence on oil. Now, keep in mind, China reportedly has been getting its oil from Venezuela, roughly about 5%, and roughly 15% of it from Iran. So 20% of their oil import is gone due to actions just taken in the last 6 months. Now, these Democrats who are running around and saying, Trump can't do this. Trump is doing exactly what he needs to do. Exactly what he needs to do in order to maintain American superiority and to ensure American safety. And also, too, keep in mind, again, as I've already mentioned in other episodes earlier this week, and I think late last week when this whole thing kicked off, folks, he is making absolutely certain that the global scale is tipped in the American favor, that we are reasserting ourselves, reasserting our dominance, and basically announcing to the world stage that we are the superpower, that there is nobody else. A lot of these dictators and everything else have had free reign under Democrat weak, wimped out presidents. Donald Trump is taking care of this today. And we know as well that this is making many, many places pause. And as you'll notice, North Korea has kind of stopped saying anything or doing anything. Russia has kind of stopped doing anything. Yeah. And, yeah. So anyway, all I've got to say is this is all in accordance with some sort of a plan. I can almost guarantee you. Have you ever played the game Risk? Risk is a board game that talks about world domination, and you go up against different armies and things like that. It's a strategy game. I personally kind of like strategy games. And this is what Donald Trump is doing. Working with his advisors, coming up with a strategy, and making sure that things are going up. Well, China, because Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz, China is pleading, begging and pleading with Iran, please, please, please keep the strait open so that we can get our oil shipments. So Iran is, basically cutting its own balls off. So, anyway, the terrorist Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, insisted on Monday that any ship attempting to pass through the strait will be set ablaze, they said. And China issued a public call for all parties to stop military operations at once, avoid future escalation, and keep the shipping routes in the strait safe to prevent further impact on the global economy. But Iran, of course, is saying, hey, we're going to attack any kind of civilian vessels that'll be using that area. Now, keep in mind, this is one of the world's most traveled oil shipping routes. So there you go. There you go. See, this is all planned, folks. You don't think this was a strategic decision? They had this planned. I can almost guarantee it. These plans have been worked on for quite some time. Well, as you all know, the Congress has been looking to try and trim back Trump's war powers, because apparently under the War Powers Act, Congress can pass resolutions to limit the president's power, which, again, I go back to the fact that the War Powers Act of 1973 is likely unconstitutional anyway, since the commander-in-chief is literally the commander-in-chief. That's the president. Okay, that's the president. Article 2. He is the commander-in-chief. But that chance of curtailing Donald Trump's attacks on Iran has just hit a major stumbling block. So tonight, or today, there was a vote in the U.S. Senate on a resolution that was aiming to stop America from bombing Iran. Senate Joint Resolution 104, which aimed to order the removal of U.S. armed forces from Iran that hasn't been authorized by Congress, failed. The senators voted 47 to 53, meaning that they turned it down. Senator Fetterman, the only surviving Democrat, actual American-focused Democrat, crossed over the aisle and voted with the Republicans, while Senator Rand Paul, who is a rhino, in my mind, he voted with the Democrats. Now, the resolution, of course, aimed to require congressional approval to continue the strikes against Iran. But, It failed. And it's a good thing, too. Not that I was necessarily worried, because remember, even if it passed the Senate, even if it passed the House, even if both of those resolutions were to have been in line with each other to the point where they could present it as a joint resolution to the president still has veto power. And he could have vetoed that own resolution trying to stop his power, because they don't have a filibuster, or not a filibuster, a veto-proof majority in the House or the Senate. Yeah. So there you go. Most Republican lawmakers backed the strikes on Iran after the nation refused to negotiate over its long-range ballistic missiles, and the fact that they even came to the table and said, yeah, we have enough nuclear material to build 11 nuclear weapons. Yeah. So let's just put it this way. I'm very glad that this failed, because things were going to get a little dicey if things had gone the way that they think. Now, keep in mind, the War Powers Act of 1973 does provide the president with the ability to keep active operations going for 60 days, and then he has up to a 30-day drawdown window in which to remove U.S. troops, all of this without congressional approval. Now, that obviously flies in the face of the Constitution, because even though Congress keeps talking about, well, we're not supposed to be going to war, nobody's declared war. Nobody has declared war here. And even if they did, the Constitution simply says that only Congress can declare war. But it doesn't say anything about military actions. It doesn't say anything about military strikes in the interests of the United States to protect not only our bases, but other Americans. It doesn't say anything about that, which is where the War Powers Act comes into play, because Congress was saying, well, you know, we got to figure out a way to stop this from happening, because every president, just about, especially those in the modern era, have all performed military actions, because if you recall correctly, if you're a student of history like myself, the last time that Congress declared war was in World War II. So Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, even though Afghanistan was technically a war because it was a declaration by Congress, not like it was a resolution, I should say, by Congress. The war on terror was a resolution by Congress. But there hasn't been an official designation or declaration of war since World War II, when we were pulled into the war. So, thankfully, this is dead. Now, the House is expected to vote on a similar resolution tomorrow. And so we'll have to see what happens there. Hopefully that goes down in flames as well. Yeah, as it should. All right. Before I move on, let me go ahead and take a quick break and talk to you about this absolutely beautiful, wonderful elixir that I drink every morning, because let's face it, I need it when I drag my ass out of bed in the early morning hours to do my regular 9 to 5. I need to have a cup of this wonderful black elixir to wake my body up and get me moving and get my brain functioning. That is known as coffee. And if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit is available in a limited quantity. In each unit, you are receiving the Bold Dark Roast. that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus that has no crash. All of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting in this kit a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. You'll also be receiving a frother that is strong enough not only to stir up your coffee, but also your mother-in-law's opinions, as well as some Democrat opinions, too. You'll also be receiving a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just the low, low price of $99. This offer is for the ones who have been watching 1775 coffee blow up on a Rumble and wondering if it's actually worth it. Well, spoiler alert, it is. Go to the numbers 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee.com, 1775coffee.com/studio, STUDIO, and grab your starter kit before they disappear. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Once again, go to 1775coffee.com/studio. And for those of you that / is the question mark key on your keyboard, 1775coffee.com /studio, and grab your starter kit today. All right. Well, we had some primaries go. Preliminary primaries. And I was very penchant in waiting for the results because, well, let's face it, one of the dumbest members of Congress, while she got her congressional district removed by Texas, by the state of Texas's redistricting, she was trying to get back into a higher office. Well, apparently she couldn't code switch well enough. She couldn't code switch well enough to get into or past her primary opponent, her primary Democrat opponent, and Jasmine Crockett went down in flames in her primary debut for the Senate seat in Texas. Thankfully, this will hopefully be the last time we ever hear from Jasmine Crockett. Because I got to tell you, between her and frickin' Al Green, the two of them need to go, bye. Well, guess what? They both are. Al Green, because he didn't bother to try and run again, and his district disappeared during the redistricting in Texas. And now Jasmine Crockett, Code Switch Crockett, she has gone down in flames against James Tallarico. Now, Tallarico, of course, moves on, and we still don't know who the Republican winner is for that same race, the Senate race, because Cornyn and Ken Paxton are in what is essentially an almost dead heat the last time that I looked. So, yeah. Anyway, it probably, again, I mean, somebody in my space and what I do, and what I'm doing here, somebody should be, somebody in my position should be very happy, or shouldn't be happy that she's gone, because let's face it, she provided a lot of content for this show. She provides a lot of material, let's say. But actually, I'll be honest with you, I really don't care. I'm glad she's gone. I am so glad. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that, yeah. Anyway, she was defeated easily by Texas State Representative James Tallarico. Now, Crockett did not concede last night. However, she did, I've heard reports, she did concede earlier today. So, yeah. She followed the example, apparently, of Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris after their losses. She just basically thanked her supporters, told them to enjoy their evening, and stated that no further announcements would be made last night. So, yeah. Now, all of that being the case, guess what? I bet you can't even guess. I bet you can't even guess the very first thing that she said in regards to her loss. Just think really, really quickly. Take a moment, take a second, center yourself. If you're driving while listening to this, because some people do listen on the audio portion of the program, but just think, close your eyes and just think, what do you think is the first thing that she is going to say about this whole thing? What do you think is the first thing that's going to come to mind? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it here. I'm seeing in the chat, I'm seeing some things about the race card, about she didn't win because we're all racists, those kinds of things. But honestly, no, you would think she would use that, but that wasn't it. What it was that, oh my God, the election was stolen. And by the way, who is responsible for that steal? Oh, well, that's the Republicans. Yep. Here it is. And by the way, I seem to recall the Democrats sitting there and talking about the fact that, polls, everything was all on the up and up, and that even questioning election results was considered a threat to our democracy. Yeah, well, here she is. Take a listen.
All Red has already stated, we encourage each and every one of you to remain resilient. We cannot allow this type of behavior to be rewarded, because so long as they know that they can win, even if it means cheating, then they will continue to do it. So I am asking you, I am begging you to make sure that you go ahead and figure out where it is that you are supposed to vote, stand in line, wait in line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cheating. That thing known as the SAVE Act, by the way. The SAVE Act. Yeah. To try and avoid cheating. Oh, apparently, Ms. Crockett might want to sign in on that. And by the way, what's even more funny about this whole thing is the fact that Kamala Harris gave a last-minute endorsement of Jasmine Crockett, and that didn't do anything for her. Oh, my gosh. Yep. So, anyway. Yeah, just the simple fact that she lost and calls out cheating, which the Save America Act is designed to try and keep anybody, it doesn't matter whether it's Democrats or Republicans, anybody from cheating. Yeah, that's the funniest possible outcome. Now, we have another. Al Green, of course, is at risk to lose to his challenger. But even better yet, the guy, everybody knows him by his eye patch. And he was the darling of the Republican Party for quite some time. He was, military veteran, all on board with MAGA. He was all up there until about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever it was, when he all of a sudden stabbed Trump in the back. That's right. Dan Crenshaw. Well, we can say goodbye to him too, because he lost his primary as well. He's gone. He's gone. So Steve Toth, Toth, has defeated Representative Dan Crenshaw in the Texas District 02 GOP primary. So, yep. And by the way, yeah, he apparently, according to NBC News, reported that he wasn't just beat by a little bit. He wasn't just beat by, well, a moderate number. No, he was beat resoundingly.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. This is Montgomery County, the Woodlands.
Wow.
This is the early vote. Again, this is Toth's base. I apologize. I've been saying it wrong. I only read these names on paper sometimes. But look at this. A monster margin in the early vote over the incumbent. 28 points. This is Toth base, Montgomery. Yep. This is Harris. The other half, he's also leading the early vote there. What that means is 60% of the vote is in this district, and it's a 7,500 vote margin, nearly a 20-point margin for Toth over Crenshaw. Would need to win the same-day vote in the mother of all landslides if he's going to catch Toth at this point. Remember, Crenshaw, the only Republican without Trump's endorsement, incumbent in the House side in Texas, and starting to look like he needed it.
Steve Kornacki delivering the drama.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if anybody was watching the ticker down below. But Senator Cotton won his handily. 80%, 80+% won his primary handily. So Senator Tom Cotton is more than likely moving on to the election. So, yeah, there we go. There we go. Yep. So we're starting to see some people who have been kind of a thorn in the side in terms of the Republican Party. They're getting, kicked out. They're going away. Well, as I said, Cornyn and Paxton are heading to a runoff race in the GOP Senate primary. Unfortunately, Cornyn leads Paxton by just a slight margin. The last count that I have here in this Epic Times piece is 41.9% for Cornyn, and Paxton is 40.7%. So there really isn't, they're almost kind of like in the margin of error or something like that. And since neither candidate essentially managed to achieve 50% of the vote because of Wesley Hunt picking up almost 13.5% of the vote. That means that they don't have enough to reach the 50% mark, and so they are heading to a runoff race. And the runoff race is apparently going to be held May 26th. Now, because Wesley Hunt, now I actually like Wesley Hunt myself, but because Wesley Hunt claimed only 13%, that knocks him out of contention for the possibility of it. Paxton, at his election night party in Dallas, Paxton compared himself to Senator Ted Cruz. Cruz finished second in the 2012 Republican Senate primary before winning in the runoff race against Texas Lieutenant Governor Dave Dewhurst. So the question is going to be asked, essentially, whether or not people who vote for an example, Wesley Hunt, would be in the runoff race, would pick either Cornyn or Paxton. And the question is going to be whether or not there's going to be enough there to be able to, bring one of those two along. So there you go. And by the way, just so you know, Cornyn, let's see, who was it? Let's see. Yeah. So, Hunt, by the way, did not rule out endorsing Paxton for the runoff. He said, "I certainly would not be endorsing John Cornyn," Hunt told the Epoch Times. And by the way, the Republican spending was dominated by Cornyn, about $70 million in support of him. On March 2nd, one day before the election day, the longtime senator made his pitch in Schertz, Schertz, which is a city near San Antonio. And a supporter there told the Epoch Times that Cornyn has a proven track record. He's like, you don't want to go into a general election with someone that has a bunch of baggage. Well, Paxton, of course, is having some challenges because of his divorce and past impeachment attempt as he was the AG. So there is some question as to what's going on with that. We'll see. But Cornyn did stress his support for President Donald Trump, but Paxton has questioned Cornyn's loyalty and touted his own conservative record as Attorney General. So that's where the battle is going on between the two of them. So we'll just kind of have to see what is going to happen here. Now, there was, by the way, there was a incident outside of Paxton's party, election night party, at least the hotel. So apparently there was a masked man in a vehicle that was apprehended outside of the election night party. Law enforcement told the Epoch Times that ammunition was found in the automobile. The automobile was later towed. In a statement on the incident provided to the Epoch Times, a spokesperson for the Dallas Police Department said that officers were notified of a suspicious individual in the 3000 block of Fairmount Street. The individual entered a vehicle and did not display the proper license plate and left the area. So, yeah. Officers conducted a traffic stop on the vehicle. The driver was arrested for traffic violations, and then during the search, officers located the ammunition. Don't know what that was all about or why, but, it's there. Might as well report on it. So anyway. Well, while Texas took the spotlight, there are a couple other places that we should take a look at. For an example, I mentioned last night Senator Tom Tillis opted not to run due to a disagreement, apparently, with President Trump, and so his seat was open. Well, the two people who won their primaries in North Carolina and the Senate matchup for that seat is none other than former Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley and former Governor Roy Cooper are going to be placed on the ballot in November in a race that could potentially determine which party ends up controlling the upper congressional chamber. Whatley, of course, is a GOP candidate. Cooper is the Democratic candidate. With around 39% of the votes counted, the Associated Press declared Whatley the winner of his race at 8:40 p.m. Eastern. Whatley was leading with around 64% at the time. Cooper was declared the winner in his race just a minute earlier at 8:39 p.m., and that was with 37% of the vote counted. Cooper was leading with a 92.4% of the vote. Now, whoever wins in the general election in this race will succeed Senator Tom Tillis, who opted not to run, like I said. Whatley is endorsed by Trump, of course. And North Carolina hopefully will be getting back on track, helping families make ends meet, creating jobs, improving public safety. yada, yada, yada. So there you go. Yeah, there you go. Now, one of the things about Whatley is he's got a proven track record for results. For an example, between 2019, June 8th of 2019 and March 8th of 2024, Whatley led the North Carolina Republican Party. During his tenure, the GOP reclaimed a supermajority in both chambers of the state legislature. He had a 14-0 record in judicial races as the state Supreme Court flipped to conservatives. However, the party lost the 2020 gubernatorial race when Cooper won re-election. He followed Ronna McDaniel after she stepped down, and under his leadership, the GOP won back the White House and the Senate and kept its majority in the House. So he ended his reign at the RNC in August 22nd of 2025 and was succeeded by Florida State Senator Joe Gruters, Gruters. So there is a history of some good stuff coming out of this guy. So let's hope that Whatley can remain in charge or win the Senate race in November to bring it up. Now, one of the problems that we've been having here in terms of all of these Senate races and House races and everything else is obviously whether or not the Republicans are going to stay in power for the last 2 years of Trump 2.0 and potentially keep that moving into 2028. Or whether or not the Democrats are going to essentially turn the last 2 years of Trump's term into not only lame duck session, but also impeachment session for Donald Trump 2.0. And the reason why is because there's 52 House members that are not running for re-election. And it's making the midterms turn into kind of a crapshoot for both parties. There's not enough tracking to really understand how this is going to affect things moving in the future. And so the next session of Congress, beginning in January of 2027, is going to see a bunch of new faces, perhaps more than any other Congress in history. So, yeah. So far, 31 Republicans and 21 Democrats will be leaving at the end of this term. Now, the final number, of course, won't be known until May or June, when decisions must be made ahead of the primaries. But it's entirely feasible that the record for retirements set in 1992, when 65 members chose to move on, will be potentially equaled or maybe even surpassed. So, yeah. Now, keep in mind, midterms traditionally have been a bit of a problem for the party in power. Keeping power is usually extremely difficult. However, when you have large numbers of members from both parties intending to leave, history becomes less important when compared to other factors like the quality of the candidates, fundraising prowess, and the ability of the candidate to build an effective organization or coalition. So, yeah. Now, in 2018, 34 House Republicans decided not to run for re-election compared to only 18 Democrats before their party wrested control from the GOP, as Axios reminds us. And that was the previous high for this century. And this is all going to be soon to be beaten. So, yeah. According to the Wall Street Journal, if the present trajectory holds, 2026 could surpass previous highs and mark the largest midterm exodus of House members in nearly a century of data. The moves signal a broader unease inside the chamber about the direction of the political winds and the value of remaining in office in a fraught political environment. Retirement decisions stem from a mix of political and personal factors. Some lawmakers are at or above the traditional Social Security retirement age of 67 and are ending long congressional careers. Others are pursuing different offices, such as Senate or governor, or navigating newly redrawn district lines. Some faced potentially difficult re-election campaigns. On the Republican side, run-ins with Trump have made life difficult for a number of lawmakers who have, of course, decided to quit, like Tom Tillis, as an example. Now, of course, all of this is meaning that the Democrats are smelling blood in the water. They want to get control and be able to impeach our president again for a bunch of crap. So, and by the way, there's a enthusiasm for the Democrats because of the fact that, let's face it, things have not really shaken themselves out very well so far. Honestly, the immigration stance has been great, but everything else has been a little lackluster in comparison to what Trump promised. And so realistically, if the economy can turn around in the next 6 months, you could see a big shift in the midterms, and we might be able to pick up seats and keep what we already have in terms of Republicans in these places. So, yeah. All right. Well, there are some who are basically saying that because of all these retirements and everything, nobody knows. We don't have any kind of historical data to go off of, and anything can happen, which is pretty much true. So, yeah, we'll kind of have to see what happens in the near future. All right. Pardon me while I take a quick drink. All right. Well, moving off of elections and the precursors to elections, let's shift our focus to Minnesota. Tim Walz and Keith Ellison have been testifying in front of Congress about where all that money, that estimated $9 billion in fraud, went. And how in the hell did $9 billion get sucked away? Well, Tim Walz, he didn't have a very good time. He didn't have a very good time on the Hill. Now, they apparently they were being asked and facing questions from the committee about the fraud schemes estimated to have cost taxpayers. I said $9 billion. They're guessing right now about $18 billion. Anyway, apparently after the committee met and talked with them, Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer said in a statement, quote, "The testimony obtained by the committee reveals that Tim Walz and Keith Ellison were aware of the widespread fraud in social service programs, lied about their knowledge of the fraud, and retaliated against employees who dared to raise concerns. Instead of protecting vulnerable Americans, they handed over billions in taxpayer dollars to fraudsters and threw their own state employees under the bus." Yeah. So, yeah, that's quite quite interesting. So, testimony apparently from 9 state officials, even though Walz kept saying that he previously, by the way, Walz did actually previously acknowledge the fraud in his state, but said that his administration had made it a priority to root it out in all of these years. Yeah, the Oversight Committee believes actually the evidence shows the opposite. Says that Walz and his senior officials knew about the fraud concerns from the very beginning of his term and ultimately failed to act on it before facing public backlash and pressure from the federal government in the past recent months. That evidence itself comes from testimony gathered from 9 current and former Minnesota state officials that oversaw the benefits programs within the Minnesota Department of Education and the Department of Human Services, the 2 government bodies that oversaw the programs that are at the center of the fraud allegations. So, yeah. They have, by the way, the committee's report is in the Just the News article that I'm reading from, so you can get it. It's already out there. Now, Walz originally did say that he was informed about the suspicious activity related to the Feeding Our Future in November of 2020, but he couldn't recall this precise date. While one Minnesota Department of Education official told the Oversight Committee that the Minnesota government had received complaints about the program as early as 2018. Now, the assistant commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Education, named Darren Korte, K-O-R-T-E, whose agency oversaw the money funneling to the Feeding Our Future food program from federal pandemic-era relief funds, confirmed that such complaints were received between 2018 and 2021. He testified that Walz's office would have been informed of the concerns by April of 2020, and that Attorney General Keith Ellison's office would have received a notice as well. Now, it was only up to the point where they were threatened with a lawsuit that the Minnesota officials started to resume funding. So apparently, once the Department of Education found in March 2021 that Feeding Our Future was in serious delinquency, the agency moved to cut off all funding to the organization. However, despite these officials acknowledging the agency's authority to unilaterally cut funds, it ended up resuming payments by April 30th of 2021 over fears that the nonprofit was going to sue. Yeah. This is just disgusting. This is just disgusting. Well, Jim Jordan. I love me some Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan went and, he sort of went after Tim Walz, as Walz should be taken under. Take a listen to this.
The payments are restarted. Why didn't you tell the truth about why you restarted the payments?
Well, Chairman, we did tell you. And Feeding Our Future grew because of the pandemic. And
I didn't ask that question. I said, why didn't you tell the truth about why you restarted the payments? The payments stopped because there were concerns, obviously, or wouldn't stop the payments. Then they're restarted a month later. What was the reason for restarting the payments?
My understanding was the agency believed that the court had required them to make those payments.
And that was false, wasn't it? You repeated that. You said that, didn't you? You said that's why the reason. You said the reason you restarted is because the court ordered you to do so. Is that right?
I don't believe that is settled yet, to the best of my knowledge.
Well, I think it is, because the court did something that I just don't. I don't know if I've ever seen it. They issued a statement saying you were wrong in what you were saying. This is from the court. It says, Feeding Our Future versus Minnesota Department of Education, correcting reports and statements by Governor Tim Walz concerning orders issued by the court. Here's what the judge says. Governor Tim Walz told the media that the Minnesota Department of Education attempted in payments to FOF because of possible fraud, but that Judge Guthman ordered payments to continue in April 2021. Next sentence. That is false. So you said something wasn't true. He further states this, Judge Guthman, the court says this, Judge Guthman never ordered the Department of Education to resume payments to Feeding Our Future in April 2021 or at any other time. Well, I want to know, why didn't you tell the truth?
Congressman, the attorneys at the Department of Education interpreted that differently. Both of those judges are no longer on the bench, and I think that interpretation.
The very first sentence, the first 7 words. This is not some unnamed source talking to the New York Times. This is not some anonymous source talking to whatever your Minnesota Star Tribune or whatever your paper is. This is the court speaking. First sentence, first 7 words. Due to inaccurate statements by the governor, Ramsey County District Court judge has issued and authorized this following news release. That's pretty straightforward. So the court's lying?
I can't tell you, Congressman, but the interpretation was
lying. Somebody's lying, because you can't say the court ordered you to restart the payments, and then the court says we didn't order you to restart the payments. So either you're lying or the court's lying. And I'm just asking you, which one is it?
I just simply know what the attorneys at the agency believed, that it was a misinterpretation. And I would note that those payments...
Could it be you were trying to hide behind the court, Governor? Could that maybe be the reason why you issued the statements you did and why the court had to do something you never see done before? They issue a press statement saying you're wrong. The governor is wrong. His statement is, their words, not mine, false. Could that be the reason?
That was not the interpretation of the attorneys. And you know, court work, you can appeal those, Congressman, as you well know. I'm sure
is it all about politics, Governor?
No, it's about taking care of our people, which Minnesota does better than anyone else.
$3 million. The behavioral intervention program went from $3 million to $400 million in 5 years. The housing stabilization went from $2.6 million to $104 million. The integrated community supports went from $4.6 million to...
You know, those pesky truth. That pesky thing known as truth. Yeah. Pesky thing known as truth. Oh, you know, where the hell does Walz get off by saying, well, that was the interpretation of the lawyers? Really? It wasn't the interpretation of the lawyers. Yeah, and, hemming and hawing. Look, we all know Tim Walz is a lying, stolen valor coward. He acted as though he was higher in rank in his military service than what he was. He acted as though he fought in a war zone, which he was never in a war zone. He acted as though he was going to be the one to go off to war in Iraq as the command sergeant major of his unit. And yeah, he didn't. He, in fact, retired a master sergeant, even though he claimed to be a command sergeant major, in order to get away from going into a war zone. Yeah. Well, throughout the testimony, there were some questions that Tim Walz just kind of, let's just say he really didn't appreciate. Not that I really care that he appreciated or not. But here is Representative Nancy Mace. Now, I'm not necessarily a Nancy Mace fan, but I am going to say there are times where she does put out some zingers, and this actually kind of was a zinger. Take a listen.
What is a woman? Have you learned that lesson? Do you know what a woman is?
I'm the governor of Minnesota, Congressman.
You know what
I'm not here to be your prop for your obsession.
So
I
if you
taught middle
can't
school your
define what
obsession.
a woman is, you certainly can't define what fraud is. If you can't even define what a woman is, you can't define fraud. How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2017, Governor?
I don't have those numbers in front of me,
Okay.
Congresswoman.
Did you prepare for this hearing today? Did you
I
do
did.
any preparation
I take
for this hearing
Congress
today?
seriously.
And you've seen the numbers about autism fraud in Minnesota. So we're going to do some Minnesota math with you today, okay? Are you ready? How much money was spent on 2017 for autism in Minnesota? How much?
I don't know. I wasn't the governor.
Okay. Did you not just say that you prepared for this hearing today? $1 million, okay? A quick Google search or using your AI could tell you $1 million was spent. How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2024?
I don't have the number in front of me.
Were you governor in 2024?
I was, but I'm not the
Okay,
head
so
of
your
HHS.
excuse before that you didn't know what 2017 autism numbers were because you were not governor, and today you can't answer the numbers about 2024 as governor, and you still said you prepared for this hearing today. It's unbelievable. $343 million.
Wait, what? Okay, I'm going to do some really quick math here. That is a, roughly 7-year increase from 2017 to 2024. Now, if you were to say that that was an increase of 100% from 1 million, 7 years, that'd be 1 million to 2 million, 2 million to 4 million, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that math comes up to 343 million at a 100% increase. That was a much larger increase that unfortunately the clip doesn't take, but that was a much larger increase than what was done. What the hell? How did they, oh my God, I can't even imagine. Yeah, like Palms R Us points out in the chat, that right there is some Biden inflation, let me tell you. Holy crap. Oh, it's like a 343% increase. Actually, it's more than that. It's way more than that because, anyway. Well, apparently, Polymarket, the betting site Polymarket, is saying that there is a 19% chance that Tim Walz is going to be charged this year in terms of this. So I don't know. Anyway. We don't know. Yeah, Walz wasn't too happy about her asking about what is a woman, learning the lesson about a woman. Yeah. Well, Jim Jordan got a chance to go back at him. And, let's just say this didn't go very well for Tim Walz either. Let's take a listen.
Governor, who's Casey Magan?
I don't know who Casey Magan is.
Well, I'll tell you. Mr. Magan is a Somali American and a fraud investigator in the guy beside you's office, in the Attorney General's office. And here's what he said. There was a perception that forcefully tackling this issue might cause political backlash among the Somali community, which is a core voting bloc. Did that have anything to do with this whole fraud scheme that went on in your state, Governor?
It did not, Congressman.
It did not. So you're saying Mr. Casey Magan is lying too?
I'm not.
You're the only one telling the truth in the whole state. Mr. Magan, who's a fraud investigator at the Attorney General's office, says it's politics. The court said
I couldn't speak for Mr. Magan. You asked me a question.
I know. I'm asking.
And I said no when you asked me the question.
I'm saying Casey Magan said just the opposite.
I don't know.
So the court's wrong and Casey Magan's wrong. You're the only guy right. How many people have been indicted in your state right now? Do you know, Governor?
I don't have those numbers with me.
You don't? 98 people have been indicted. You happen to know how many are Somali American?
I don't. We don't investigate or prosecute people based on ethnicity, religion.
Neither do I. We shouldn't do that. But Mr. Magan is a Somali American who just said that the court, one of the concerns was this is a core voting bloc. And I just want to know if you know how many of the 98 people who have been indicted in your state are Somali.
I don't. Their ethnicity is not my concern.
85% of the people indicted were Somali American, key voting bloc. And I think that's what drove this whole thing. With that, I yield back.
Gentlemen.
Oh, one sure way to look stupid is to be completely unprepared for something like this. Just saying. Yeah. He is definitely a complete, utter, stupid moron. My math whiz, an unofficial producer, says that the difference between 2017 In 2024, it was a 34,000% increase. 34,000% increase in spending for autism. Yeah. So, well, they're having some serious problems here. 85% key voting block. Gee, this was a political. Yeah, this was political. I mean, the political in getting people rich. Hello. All at the expense of the American people. Now think about this. We're $37 trillion in debt, $38 trillion in debt, somewhere in that range, keeps growing every day. If you consider that we had 18 billion with a B stolen by Minnesota, that's one state out of 50. They're still investigating in places like my home state of Washington for very similar fraud. Now, if you just say, hey, 18 billion, I'm going to depend on my math whiz here because I don't think my mind is going to be able to wrap my head around this. Let's just say 18 billion was, and I'm hoping she's picking up the reference, 18 billion was stolen by roughly half the states. So that's 25 states. So take 18 billion by 25, and what do we have? I'm going to wait a second. Hopefully she caught what I was trying to throw at her, my unofficial producer. 18 billion times 25 states. What are we looking at? What are we looking at here? Money-wise. That's an awful lot amount of money. I can't even think about it. I mean, that is seriously, that's an awful lot. Oh, that is an awful lot of money. Wow. I don't know where these people are getting off or where they're coming from, but man, what a freaking mess. Well, while we wait for that, hopefully that mathematical calculation to come through here. Another math whiz that I wasn't aware was lurking in the shadows. It's $450 billion. We're talking about almost $500 billion just by itself in just fraud. Oh, there she is. Yay. Thank you all for that. My head hurts. $450 billion. $450 billion if just half the states had fraud in them. Now imagine if 2/3 had fraud or more. Oh my gosh, we're talking possibly a couple trillion altogether, depending on the amount. Yeah. Anyway, really quickly, the Supreme Court today announced that they are handing the Trump administration a victory on immigration, on immigration. I was trying to slam administration and immigration together. It just didn't work. Anyway, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that the federal appeals courts must defer to immigration judges' determinations on whether or not asylum seekers face harm in their home countries severe enough to qualify for U.S. protection. So basically what the SCOTUS is saying is it's not the federal court's business to determine eligibility for asylum. That's it. There you go. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine that. I can't even imagine that. Why? Because immigration, the court has said multiple times, immigration isn't a criminal matter, it is a civil matter. And so it needs to go to the immigration's court processes. Why these leftists seem to think that somebody who comes here illegally has the rights that the American people do under the Constitution, the same rights under the Constitution that the American people, the American citizens do, is completely beyond comprehension. Well, actually, it's not beyond comprehension because the Democrats don't comprehend the Constitution applies to American citizens alone. That's it. Period. Anyway, what is kind of a bit of a surprise is the fact that the Supreme Court, that this decision was a unanimous decision. We didn't have any it's a 9-0 decision. So the three leftist lunatic activists on the courts didn't bother to basically try and chirp up and say something, which is amazing. So, yep. There you go. There you go. And what's even more of a surprise is Ketanji Brown Jackson actually wrote the majority opinion. She wrote, we conclude that the statute requires application of the substantial evidence standard to the agency's conclusion that a given set of undisputed facts does not constitute persecution. Accordingly, we affirm. So now, under this ruling, federal appeals courts must now defer to immigration agencies on questions of asylum. Once an agency determines that the facts do not establish persecution, courts have far less ability to second-guess that judgment, making successful asylum appeals much more difficult. So there we go. That's sweet. That's good. Oh, Nana took my unofficial producer took the math a little bit farther and was saying that it's average of 50 billion in fraud per state. Now, this isn't just like the Feeding Our Future or anything, but an average of 50 billion in fraud per state comes up to 2.5 trillion in fraud yearly. Now, think about that as you contemplate that we're going up to $40 trillion in our national debt. All right, folks, let's get on to tonight's Pet of the Week. All right, and tonight's Pet of the Week is another emergency one submitted by Ms. T of Texas. And, well, let's just say I've had one of these. I've had a few of these running around in my neck of the woods. My neighbor a long time ago actually raised these. Give me just a second. I'm going to get rid of that. Yeah, there they are. This is, well, it's basically a ringneck pheasant. And let me tell you, these birds can get incredibly pretty. I'm just going to say they are incredibly pretty. Ms. T writes, from the backwoods in our backyard, welcome, if you will, Prince Pheasant from who knows where. She says, we've never seen one here. Apparently, she grew up in the Texas Panhandle where pheasants were everywhere, all of the time. And apparently, in the area that they live now, back in the 1970s, the Texas Parks and Wildlife tried to stock pheasants in a place called Chambers County, Texas, hoping to reestablish a breeding stock to use for hunting seasons to come. And it didn't seem to work. But apparently there's at least a few from that endeavor that are still around, and this happens to be a representative of one of those birds. So these birds now, for my experience, I had a neighbor that actually grew pheasants. And unfortunately, we have a lot of coyotes around here, so the flock, I don't think, lasted very long. But there was one summer in particular where I would be on my riding lawnmower, driving around on my front yard, mowing my front yard, of course, and this ringneck pheasant, male, looked very similar to what this one was. And she, or it, I should say, would strut next to me as I was mowing the lawn. Now, keep in mind, my lawnmower was a red color. It was a Murray riding lawnmower. And it would come and it would strut like within an arm's length of the lawnmower. I was actually kind of surprised that it wasn't afraid of the noise. that was there, but he was around for, I don't know, maybe 1 year. Otherwise, I think he ended up being dinner for somebody, whether it was the guy that was raising him or the coyotes in the area. But anyway, these are beautiful birds. If you can ever get a chance to see one, they're just absolutely beautiful. Now, I'm not one to hunt birds, but yeah, they are definitely beautiful. Especially the ring-necked pheasant. So anyway, now we just have a chicken. I've seen the rooster, very beautiful red and green rooster that has come over into our property from our neighbors as well. So there you go. And yes, as usual in the avian species, the females of the species are generally not all that pretty. We've got hummingbirds that come flying around here, and, you know, my wife puts out the hummingbird. And, yeah, the hummingbirds are very, very beautiful, the males. Females are a little dull and brown, dull brown. So anyway. All righty, folks, that is it for this evening. Hey, if you want to get your pet featured for Pet of the Week next week, you have a week, well, a little less than a week, to get it in. So submit your Pet of the Week to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. You can send me photos, videos, whatever. Just send me a little bit of information about the animal, and we'll go from there. So anyway, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or across, if you're three Chevy, thumb sideways, across all of your platforms, my platforms, which are X, YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.